In the near future, the United States erupts into a civil war between the government and secessionist movements known as the Western Forces, led by Texas and California. The nation's third-term president delivers a speech announcing a major defeat against the Western Forces, claiming that victory is within reach. Meanwhile, photojournalist Lee watches the speech from her hotel room in New York City as bombings occur outside. The following day, Lee and her colleague Joel go out to cover the riots. In the middle of a protest, Lee notices a young journalist, Jessie, get struck in the face. Lee rushes to help her and takes her to safety. Jessie is surprised to recognize Lee, who then gives her a fluorescent vest. Suddenly, a woman runs into the crowd. Lee quickly ducks for cover with Jessie as the woman sets off a suicide bomb. The explosion causes many casualties, and Lee immediately takes pictures of the aftermath. Back at the hotel where most of the press stay, Lee and Joel join their mentor, Sammy. They inform him that they plan to drive through the country's war zones to Washington, D.C. to interview the president. Sammy thinks it's too dangerous because the press are considered enemies there, but Joel believes it's going to be a great story. Sammy reveals he wants to go to the front lines in Charlottesville, Virginia, and hopes to catch a ride with them. Lee agrees. As Lee goes back to her room to rest, Jessie approaches her and expresses admiration for Lee, considering her to be her idol and expressing her desire to become a war photographer just like her. Later, in her hotel room, Lee reflects on the horrible memories of other wars she has covered. The next morning, as the group prepares to leave, Lee notices that Jessie is also joining them. She becomes upset and complains to Joel, making the situation awkward as Sammy and Jessie can hear her. Joel insists they should give Jessie a chance, but Lee makes it clear that Jessie won't go any further than Charlottesville. On the road, they see desolation everywhere, with abandoned cars and smoke rising all around. After driving for some time, they come across a gas station guarded by 3 armed men and decide to stop to fuel up, but they are only allowed to do so when they offer to pay $300 Canadian. Jessie gets out of the car to investigate something, and one of the armed men follows her. Lee feels worried and also follows them. They see 2 men hanging and severely tortured, and the armed man explains they are looters. He then asks Jessie to decide whether he should execute the 2 men, but Jessie is too scared to respond. Lee diffuses the situation by asking the man to pose alongside his victims for a picture. When they hit the road again, Jessie berates herself for being too scared to take photos. Lee tells her that what they are heading into is much worse than what they just experienced back there. The group passes by an abandoned mall, and Lee requests to stop the car. She asks Jessie to follow her to a downed helicopter and requests Jessie to take pictures. Jessie apologizes for joining them without permission, aware that Lee is upset about it, but Lee doesn't mind and states that their situation is a mistake, no matter how you look at it, including Jessie being there. Jessie insists it's her decision, and Lee warns her of the potential consequences if she gets blown up or shot. Jessie then asks if Lee would photograph the moment if she gets shot. Lee implies that she definitely would. As night falls, they sit and talk while gunfire goes on in the distance, lighting up the sky. Joel suggests covering the story, but Lee says they are not risking going near that in the dark and will take a look if it's still going on tomorrow. The next day, the group heads to the scene while the gunfire is still ongoing to document the combat as secessionist militiamen assault a building held by loyalists. The armed conflict is intense and relentless, but the journalists manage to stay alive while capturing the perfect shots. They witness a man being shot right in front of them. This time, Jessie overcomes her fear and takes pictures. The group follows the Allied militia gunmen up the building, where they find a wounded soldier and kill him on the spot. They then capture the rest of the soldiers and execute them. Afterward, the 4 continue their journey and arrive at a refugee camp, where they take a rest. Lee brings Jessie something to eat and sits next to her. The 2 start to bond, and Jessie shows Lee the photo she took earlier. Lee compliments her, saying it's a great shot. The following day, they continue driving towards Washington, D.C., and pass through a peaceful town that appears unaffected by the ongoing war, with people living their normal lives. They enter a store where Joel asks the saleswoman if they are aware of the civil war happening across the country, but the woman says that the town is choosing to ignore it. Jessie convinces Lee to try on a dress, something she hasn't done in a long time, and then takes pictures of her. As Lee leaves the store, Sammy waits outside and points out 2 armed men stationed on the roofs of buildings, indicating that they are just doing their best to pretend nothing's wrong. Later, they come across a strange place with a dead person in the middle of the road. Sammy suggests taking a different route, but Lee uses her camera to check the area and doesn't see anyone around, so they decide to drive forward. Suddenly, shots are fired and they immediately take cover behind a truck. They realize they are caught in a sniper battle. Joel runs towards the snipers, narrowly avoiding being hit. The 2 snipers are camouflaged on the ground, aiming at a large house while Jessie takes their pictures. Joel asks them what side they are fighting for, and the snipers mock him, saying they are just killing those trying to kill them. Then, one of the snipers takes a shot and kills their target. Afterward, the group continues their journey with Lee at the wheel, while Joel and Jesse catch some sleep. Lee spots a car speeding up to them, and Sammy suggests letting it pass. When the car catches up, it turns out to be Joel's reporter friends, Tony and Bohai, who have decided to join them on their trip to the capital after hearing about the plan at the hotel. Tony climbs into their car through the window while they're still driving, and Jesse does the same, switching into Tony's car before Bohai speeds off ahead with her. Sometime later, they come across Bohai's car parked by the roadside with the doors open and find the two held at gunpoint by unknown uniformed militia who are dumping a truck full of corpses into a mass grave. Despite Sammy's objections, the other three approach and attempt to negotiate their release. However, the militia leader shoots Bohai. Joel tries to calm the situation by stating they are all Americans, but the leader questions what kind of Americans they are and asks where each one is from. When he learns Tony is from Hong Kong, he kills him too, leaving the others in panic. The leader then points his gun at Joel. Just then, Sammy drives the car and runs over the militia members, allowing the three to get in the car and flee. One soldier fires at them as they drive away. After escaping, Jesse vomits in the back, and Sammy tells them he can no longer drive because he's been shot. Joel takes over and drives continuously until nightfall, passing through a burning forest along the way. The next day, they reach a Western Forces military base in Charlottesville. Unfortunately, Sammy has already died from his wounds. At the base, Lee and Joel meet with a British reporter and learn that most of the Loyalists have already surrendered, leaving Washington, D.C. defenseless, except for a few fanatic remnants and Secret Service agents. The Western forces plan to attack D.C. Joel lashes out in frustration, believing they are too late and have missed the story, making Sammy's death pointless. The military begins moving towards the capital. Once they enter the war zone, the trio follows the Western forces as they launch their assault on Washington, D.C. During the intense gunfight, Jessie repeatedly risks her safety to capture photographs, while Lee struggles with combat fatigue. The Western forces soldiers fight their way to the White House and breach the heavily fortified perimeter with a tank. From a distance, they see the Secret Service trying to escort the president away in cars, attempting to escape. But they are all intercepted and everyone is killed. Realizing the president isn't among them, knowing it's a diversion, the group makes their way to the White House, followed by a team of Western Forces soldiers. Inside the White House, the team advances through the building, battling against the remaining Secret Service agents, while Lee and Jesse keep taking photos. As they move forward, they encounter an agent attempting to negotiate for the president's surrender, but the soldiers refuse and kill her. They continue searching for the president, and when Jesse steps forward to take photos, Lee sees danger and pushes her to the ground, taking a fatal gunshot for her. As Lee falls, Jesse captures multiple pictures of her final moments. With no time to grieve, Jesse emotionlessly continues walking into the Oval Office, where the Western Forces soldiers are dragging the president from under his desk and preparing to execute him. Despite the president's plea not to be killed, the soldiers proceed anyway, while Jesse captures a powerful shot of the moment.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out our channel for more videos.